Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne Kimball, United States Army veteran and retired VA rating specialist. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the VA's OIG report as it pertains to DBQ fraud. Also, I am going to share a story with you from when I was a VA rater and there was possible fraud of DBQs. Make sure you stick around. Okay, everyone, the VA's OIG report for DBQ fraud. I have 3 slides I'm going to share with you today, but before I start to share those slides, hear me and hear me well when I say this. If you go to any examiner, a private examiner, especially a private examiner, okay, your doctor, and you opt in to have them to complete a DBQ and or Nexus statement if warranted, make sure you are following the VA guidelines as it pertains to having these exams / DBQs completed by a non-VA healthcare provider. Okay, I know this process can be frustrating and you can get fed up with certain VA employees not following guidelines, okay? But don't do what they do by not following their own guidelines. That way, if you have to go before a judge, a high-level review, decision review officer, or whatever, you know your information was completed correctly. Also, I was watching a video within the past week and a half, where veterans stated they used the company and they went out and had a DBQ completed, and the examiner wanted to put information on that exam that was not accurate. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Make sure you're following those VA guidelines. They're there to help you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. Slide number 1. Here in slide number 1, this just basically says U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Office of Inspector General, Office of Audits and Evaluations. VBA, Veterans Benefit Administration, without effective controls, public disability benefit questionnaires continue to pose a significant risk of fraud to the VA. Okay, so just like I said, veterans, make sure you're following the VA regulations. There are several VA regulations out there that state if you submit a sufficient DBQ, no further examination is warranted. What regulation is that? 38 CFR 3.326 subpart B. I'm gonna say it again, 38 CFR 3.326 subpart B. Now, are there other regulations or references out there as it pertains to private examiners completing DBQs? Yes. Make sure you're doing it the correct way. Let's keep going. Slide number 2. And here in slide number 2, this is the executive summary. I'm not going to read the entire summary, just what I have highlighted in blue. Also keep in mind, there's many other pages to this report. I went through it and just picked out some that I thought that would be important for this particular video. Okay, so it says, the act required VBA, Veterans Benefit Administration, to resume publishing disability benefit questionnaires after VBA removed them from its public-facing website in April 2020. These questionnaires are forms that veterans can download and ask their non-VA medical providers to complete. Now, there's 2 things I want to point on here. One, we all remember back in 2020 when those DBQs came down, it was like Black Friday, okay? And it was months before they republished them. And that's what they're saying. This particular act required them to publish them again, okay? And I believe they took them down back then because they felt that there was some type of fraud going on, okay? So from that point, I definitely, I can understand it. All right. Now, the second part that I want to point out is a lot of people are telling veterans, oh, you can't have your private doctor to complete an exam, even if the exam is completed by a non-VA medical provider and the VA requests a CMP exam, you still have to go. That's misinformation. I rated hundreds of cases where veterans submitted DBQs, they were sufficient, and I did not schedule a CMP exam. And that was based on my training from the Department of Veterans Affairs when I rated, okay? But I'm not saying to go or not to go. What I'm saying is you have to understand what the regulations are when you go this route and what you want to do. I know what I did, and I shared that in other videos as well. Let's keep it going. Down below it says internal questionnaires and the providers completing them receive greater scrutiny from VBA than public questionnaires completed by non-VA medical providers. I do not think that is a true statement, and here's why. Because a lot of VA employees are refusing to use veterans' private DBQs when they are actionable and sufficient, and raters are saying, oh, your doctor was out of state. Okay. Other veterans, they go to third-party contractors that are out of state sometimes. Okay. So there's no regulation on that. Or they'll just blatantly lie and say, oh, your DBQ is insufficient or it's inconsistent, but they'll never explain why it's insufficient or what those inconsistencies are. And when they don't, most likely there are none. Okay, they just want to refuse to use it. So when there was an issue with a third party or VA examiner's CMP exam, we would send it back. Okay, but saying one is held, it's more scrutinized than the other, I think is just the opposite. Okay, but that's just my opinion. Okay. Also, it goes on to say completed internal questionnaires are reviewed to ensure they meet the requirements set forth by VA. Okay. Also, external ones should be reviewed as well. They have to be. Okay. And I did that as a VA rater. Additionally, VA medical providers are vetted and receive specific VA training before they complete any questionnaires. Oh man, I would love to see what training that they receive, okay? In contrast, providers who complete public questionnaires are not vetted by the VA. I don't think that they need to be, okay? As long as they're following the VA guidelines to make sure they're doing it the right way. Nor are they required to take any specific VA training prior to completed public questionnaires. Okay, if they're not, and if these examiners want to complete DBQs for veterans, but they don't want to be a third party, work for a third party contracting company, well, say, hey, here's the training, give them a test and certify them and let them do it. But the VA is not going to do that. They want to keep that, I think they want to keep that control, okay? Because if they do the training, give certain doctors that want to do this the training, now they know, okay, these doctors have went through this training and they can force those VA employees to use them. Okay, as simple as that, right? All right, let's keep going. Slide number 3. Here's slide number 3. This is what the OIG recommended, okay? And it states, again, I'm not going to read the entire slide here, okay? It says the OIG recommended that VBA continue to develop a system for digitally capturing, analyzing, and monitoring public questionnaires and develop policies for reviewing and remedying any potentially fraudulent public questionnaires identified, okay? Additionally, VBA should update the examiner certification and signature section found in the questionnaires to include the form is being completed under the penalty of perjury. Now, some of you may think that's harsh. I'm total in agreement with that, okay? And I'll get to that here in a minute, okay? The questionnaires should also include a section for examiners to list any organizations that requested that they complete the examination on the claimant's behalf. VBA should provide claims processors guidance on how to identify a potentially fraudulent public questionnaire and clarify the steps they should take when they suspect that a public questionnaire may be inauthentic or potentially fraudulent. Okay? The OIG also recommended that VBA inform claims processors as part of the public questionnaire review process that they have a duty to review and weigh all evidence of record. Okay? So I kind of get where they're trying to go with this, especially penalty of perjury. Yeah, that needs to be there. And again, I'll explain why I feel that should be there. Okay. Then it also goes on to say about, processors and training if they think something is fraudulent. Okay, right quick. Let's get to penalty of perjury. Yes, I think that needs to be in that DBQ, and here's why. Earlier in this video, I stated I watched the video and a veteran was saying that, hey, basically they went to an examiner and the examiner says, yes, you have this particular condition and we'll relate it to combat. And the veteran says, I never was in combat. Stay away from that. Don't do it. Also, when I rated, there was a doctor's name floating around the regional office. And I remember going to a meeting one day with management. Okay, it was like all raters, right? And we were sitting in that meeting and someone stood up, a rater, and I think they were on my team, and they stood up and said, hey, I've been getting a lot of DBQs from this particular person. And everybody else saying, yeah, me too, me too. And I was like, yeah, I've seen those. And they were saying that they looked the doctor up, and I don't think they were actual doctor, if I'm not mistaken. It's been years ago. This was like within a year of when the DBQs first came out. And management said, hey, we'll get back to you. Okay, so in the meantime, they're still completing these DBQs. And we're like, what do we do? What do we do? And this particular person was completing, they had to be some in the medical field, but I don't think they were actual MD. I could be wrong, but they were doing PTSD, because back when DBQs first came out, there were PTSD initial DBQs and PTSD review DBQs. Now they're only PTSD review DBQs and non-PTSD DBQs, all right? They were filling out mental DBQs, they were filling out joint DBQs, they were filling out cardiovascular DBQs, neurological, they were just doing a whole gamut, okay? But I remember a couple of years later, then they said, yep, you can use those particular certain DBQs for that particular doctor. I'm sorry. But that's what I can, one of the instances that I can remember when there was suspected fraud and then, somebody did actually bring it up and the VA looked into it. But I want to leave you with this. Again, make sure you're following the VA guidelines and regulations when you download these DBQs and you take them to your private doctor. Again, the VA regulations are on your side. So that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and don't forget to share this video with your fellow veterans. Also, go to my website, www.kmd89, pick up my new book, VA Claims Success. Thank you.